Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Way of Life Big Book Study. I am Dave, and I'm a recovered alcoholic.
And my name is Blythe, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic.
And I asked one of you fine people to please read the preamble.
Darnell Alcoholic.
Hi, Darnell.
Hey, preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
And I asked somebody else to read the set-aside prayer.
Set aside, hi Brittany, alcoholic.
Hi, Brittany.
Set aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself and the 12 steps, this book, the meetings, my disease, and you, God. So I may have an open mind and new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth.
Thank you, Brittany.
At this meeting, myself and Blythe are going to read and explain the first portion of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. There'll be some time at the end of the meeting for questions and discussion. There's paper and pens, highlighters, and all of that stuff. So if questions, comments, write them down. Talk about them after. We're going to start, but first we're going to do a really quick recap. And Blythe's going to do that.
Sure. Good evening, friends. My name is Blythe, gratefully recovered alcoholic. So this is a little bit different than other meetings. This is a big book-based meeting. Our opinions are not valid here. Anything that we talk about comes out of this book. Dave and I try to stay as closely related to this book as possible. The book came before the fellowship, and it's based for our fellowship, right? Our fellowship is supposed to use this as the tool to help people get sober, and the more we see that happen, the more success we're going to see. Up until page 22, or starting on page 23 tonight, up until page 22, we really learned about the allergy, or this phenomenon of craving, that when I have one drink, I can't stop, and I'm on a tear. The average normal drinker can have one or two drinks and put it down, and that's just not me. We went through the doctor's opinion. The doctor really lays out our illness, especially that allergy piece. He talks a little bit about the subtle insanity surrounding the first drink, but that's really what we're going to get into tonight. Just to touch on the title page of our book, it says the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism, and the story is in italics. When I look at my story, I couldn't stay sober. These guys had a story that got them sober. If I do what they did, I'm going to get what they got. Okay, so we're going to start on page 23.
Where did we exactly, these observations?
Start with these observations.
Yeah? Okay. All right. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion.
So didn't I come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I couldn't not have that first drink? I knew that every time I drank it was a shit show, but I couldn't stop myself. And that's why I came here. So that's why it's so important to get the message that's carried in this book. It's going to save your life.
Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind.
So now we're talking about this second symptom. The allergy of the body was one thing up until this point. Now we're talking about this malady that centers in my mind. The main problem, right? What's wrong with me? This. This is what's wrong with me.
I'm crazy. That's what's wrong with me. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. Wait, I read that. Should I read it again? Rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started on that last vendor, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache.
The example I always give of this is I would go out drinking because my girlfriend's being a bitch. Right? But am I making it better when I go out and spend all the money and come home wasted and puking on myself? Right?
No rent money left.
Yeah.
If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have.
I was baffled of why I continued to take that first drink. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to drink for years before I came into the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was completely baffled why I kept picking up.
Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot.
Right? Baffled. Why do I keep drinking? I don't get it.
There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game.
Right? So the game being the drinking game, that I can beat it. I'm obsessed with the idea that I can stop. This is pre-step one stuff. I'd wake up in the morning and be like, I'm never doing that again. But it's okay, because I'll stop. Right? It's okay, because I'll stop. It's okay, because I'll stop. That day never arrives. Right? We come here and we learn about our illness, and we smash the obsession that I can drink like a normal person, or that somehow, someday I'll beat the game. We do that on our own. In the fellowship, you hear a lot about that this obsession gets lifted. The obsession is not a symptom of alcoholism. This malady that centers in my mind, the strange mental blank spots, or insidious insanity is surrounding the first drink. The obsession, we smash ourselves, and we'll get into that in the next pages.
But they often suspect they are down for the count. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will.
Common observation on alcoholics, our friends and family think we can stop.
But the tragic truth is that if a man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive.
The real alcoholic is unable to stop because of this malady that centers in my mind.
Remember the real alcoholic definitions back on 21. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail.
So as we learn the symptoms of our illness, we learn this malady, we learn that I can stay sober for weeks or months, but I have this tick-tock thing going on, and if I don't have a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, it's only a matter of time.
This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. Right? Oh, I just read this book. I found out I'm an alcoholic. And everyone around goes, yeah, no shit, dude. Well, what are you talking about? The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink.
It's an illness, not a behavior problem. If I could just choose not to drink, would I be here? I would have stopped years ago.
And this is a fact. If you're an alcoholic. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable, at certain times, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink.
So we're unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness, right? I can play the tape back 9 times out of 10. But there's, like I say, it's that tick-tock. Sooner or later I'm going to pick up. My friend explains it very well. He says, am I going to get in an airplane with a pilot who crashes 9 times, who lands safely 9 times out of 10, but one time he's going to crash and he doesn't know which of those 10 times it's going to be? Am I going to get in that airplane with him? That's the same piece with this, with me trying to keep me sober. I can do it 9 times out of 10. I can refuse drinks. I can say no. My life is really good. I got my job back. I got all this stuff back. And then there it is again.
This really adds to the baffling feature of alcoholism, right? Like, we go 2 months and 3 months or 6 months and we, like, Bill, right? The goose hung high. I got this, man. And I've said no, look at me go, right? And then the day comes where we just don't even remember what we should remember. It's a terrible plan.
And we're unable to bring into our memory the suffering. You know, I would go back to the crack shacks I was getting beat up at. I would go back to the bar where I was fighting all the time. Because this time it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. Right? Even though the same patterns over and over and over again. I couldn't bring into my memory. Right?
Yeah, my brain tells me it's going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome.
Girls and the beach and fun. doesn't tell me I end up in jail. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and ready supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove.
Most of the people in this room know what we're talking about here. Like, I haven't been successful at drinking for a long time, and I just keep putting my hand on that hot stove and trying.
It's not going to burn me. This is how.
Consequences. Consequences. Burn. Consequences. Burn. Consequences. Yeah.
Yeah, and we give way to that old idea that I'll just have one this time, right? Like that obsession that we talked about earlier on, that I can someday control and enjoy my drinking. But my first symptom, the allergy, tells me I'm not going to do that. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time, so here's how. So perhaps he doesn't think at all, or perhaps he doesn't think at all, sorry. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded in the bar and said to ourselves, for fuck's sakes, how did I ever get started again? Only to have that thought supplanted by, well, I'll stop with the sixth drink, or what's the use anyhow? Ever said that? Well, I'm already drunk, so might as well let her buck.
Right? And I would try to stop. And I would try to stop, and something would happen that I wouldn't understand, these strange blank spots, and I'll be loaded again, and I'm like, what the fuck, right?
Anyone remember being like, I gotta work at 7, but it's 11, so that's 8 hours. Okay, I'm good. I'll go to bed at midnight, and then midnight comes, you're like, oh, well, 2. That's still 5 hours of sleep, right? All the way until like you don't go to bed at all. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies,
here we go.
He has probably placed himself beyond human aid.
If I can't stop myself, who can stop me?
And unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts are being confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history.
So the reason they call these facts is because these stark and ugly facts are confirmed by legions. Legions means like 5,000 to 6,000 people, right? Legions. A legion is 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah, plural.
We talk about how many people have confirmed these facts.
But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop but can't. There is a solution.
Yes!
Almost none of us like the self-searching, self-leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the process requires for successful consummation.
So this is kind of like the introduction of the steps a little bit here. This is how we kind of seal the deal. This is the things we got to do, isn't it?
Yeah, the self-searching, which is...
Yeah, step 4.
Right?
And 5, right?
The leveling of our pride, step 5, right? The confessions of our shortcomings, 5. Yeah. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we've been living it.
Life isn't too good when I can't stop drinking. When I want to stop and I can't stop, I'm always thinking about drinking, all that stuff. Life's not the best, is it?
When, therefore, we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed.
So the problem had been solved, right? We talk about having an alcoholic mind, that where my malady centers. And I go through this process, and that malady gets put at bay, and my alcoholic mind is removed on a daily reprieve. Simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. It's up to you guys whether you pick them up or not. It's a program of action.
We're going to read the... No? Okay.
And rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence. This is really cool stuff. Like, this fourth dimension of existence knows neither time nor space.
God consciousness.
God consciousness. Yeah. And that's where I live today, and it's amazing.
That's when God kicks you in the balls and you're like, oh my God, he's real. The great fact is just this and nothing less. What we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves, like stay
The
sober.
central fact of my life today is that God lives inside me. Commenced to accomplish those things that I could never do by myself. First of all, relieved my alcoholic mind. That is the biggest thing. After that, all my other problems get solved as well. My financial problems, my sex problems, my relationship problems, all that stuff.
Those sound like promises.
Yeah. Super cool stuff, man.
If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution.
So middle of the road solutions is all the things that I tried to do to get sober, and there's a lot of them. Going to church, moving, getting a pet, reading wordy books, going to meetings, yesterday's spiritual experience when I don't do the work to continue with it. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. Medication, psychiatry, just all kinds of things. Middle of the road solutions. If you are an alcoholic and have this malady that centers in your mind, unless you find a spiritual experience and a psychic change, you will drink again.
Step one promise, right? We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, and if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid.
So it's just mentioned on the previous page that when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he's placed himself beyond human aid. Mm-hmm. This idea that it won't burn me this time, so here's how. Right?
I've got a question. What is a psychic change?
Spiritual experience.
Spiritual experience.
The doctor used that term because if he was a doctor and said that he had to have a spiritual experience, they would have questioned his scientific background.
And how many people, when they're like 2 days sober, want to hear they need God or they're going to die? Not many, right? We kind of ease you into it. Yes. We had but two alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could.
I'm a really good blotter. It's not that bad. I can fix this myself. I can figure this out myself. I just need to go to more meetings, or I just need to do this, or just do that.
Tomorrow.
Me. I. It's not a self-help program.
And I'll fix it tomorrow.
And I'll do it tomorrow.
And the other is to accept spiritual help. I was going to say something. What was it? Oh, well.
Just to let you know that spiritual help is laid out in the pages of this book. The purpose of this thing is to help you find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem.
And it says alternatives, not choices.
Yeah, it's not choices.
You're either going to do one or the other. We did because we honestly wanted to, and were willing to make the effort. A certain American businessman...
This is Roland Hazard.
Yes. Had ability, good sense, and high character. For years he had floundered from one bunker bin to another.
Anybody here been to lots of treatment centers? Yeah.
He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrist.
The best-known American psychiatrist.
Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of the celebrated physician, the psychiatrist, Dr. Young.
Dr. Young, created Western psychiatry, created it.
Yeah, this guy's had books written about the books that he wrote. Mm-hmm. Who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence.
Anybody here ever finish their treatment with unusual confidence?
Got this. I learned about masks and the anger train. I'm good. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind, and his hidden springs and relapse was unthinkable.
This is where we start talking about that self piece, right? Self-thinking, I can fix me, I got to change my thoughts, da-da-da-da-da.
Remember back in Bill's story? Surely self-knowledge is the key. Didn't work for him. It's probably not going to work for this guy either. He learned about his triggers. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. Called it. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall.
So once again, this guy he had the he had the desire to not drink. He went to a bunch of psychiatrists trying to help him to not drink. Went to the best psychiatrist in Europe trying to not drink.
In the world,
Got
arguably.
loaded. Yeah. Got loaded.
He returned to the doctor for whom he admired and asked point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he'd have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion. I love that part because Dr. Young's world right now, he's probably really, really expensive, and he's like, Doc, I need some help, man. What's wrong with me? I don't know, you're fucked, dude. That'll be $1,000. It's like, come on, man. Need some help. But this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let's tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I've never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang.
Step one experience.
Yeah.
He just realized that he is powerless over this thing. He felt the gates of hell close in on him with a clang. He knows that he's going to drink himself to death, and there's fuck all that he can do about it.
And he said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena,
Man of science, right?
or rare. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them."
So this is kind of a spoiler alert about the steps. It's kind of what some of this stuff that we do, our ideas. We talk a lot about old ideas. Our old ideas don't work. My way didn't work. Old ideas, emotions, and attitudes that drove my life, I have to settle those aside and be willing to let something else in, let Alcoholics Anonymous in, let a higher power in, and create some new ways of thinking and some new attitudes and all that kind of stuff.
Step 4 and 5 really help with that, right?
Yeah.
We come at looking at things in an entirely different way. In fact, I've been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangements within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employ are successful, but I've never been successful with an alcoholic of your description.
Right? This is the real alcoholic. He has this alcoholic mind where he wants to stop and he can't stay stopped.
Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that after all, he was a good church member.
Oh, it's a good thing I go to church then.
This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctor telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience.
Yeah.
If it was good enough, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, they don't write step 4s in church usually, right?
Yeah. Remember, there's the stereotypical, Catholic drunken Irish priest, right? Like, just going to church doesn't mean you've got this. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the description of drowning men.
Desperation.
Yeah, that's what I meant. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God.
So I can't swim. So if you want to get rid of me, just throw me in the river.
He can't swim.
But the desperation of a drowning man, and I can picture this in my mind where I'm going down the river and I'm drowning, right? And I'm grabbing at anything that's going to grab a hold of me. And I see this flimsy reed, right? If you think of a marsh reed, I see this reed coming off the shore, and it's a flimsy reed. Am I going to grab it? Because I'm drowning. I'm going to grab it.
You can grab at anything.
I'm going to grab at anything. And I grab this flimsy reed, and it proves to be the loving and powerful hand of God. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous and these 12 steps are, right? You don't expect it to work for you, but you're like, screwed, right? Step 1 experience, I'm screwed. So I'm going to grab at this flimsy reed, and it's the loving and powerful hand of God.
Not drowning no more.
Yeah.
A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living Creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms, as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try.
So I hear a lot like, oh, it won't work for me. I have problems with the God idea. One thing, we all have problems with the God idea. If we had right relationship with God, none of us would be alcoholic. And second, it talks here about the solution to that. That as soon as we're willing and honest enough to try and do this work, we'll get the spiritual experience. We tend to put the carriage before the horse and think that we have to believe in God before we can go through the steps. And the steps are what get us to this power.
Yeah, once you honestly realize you're screwed, you're going to be really willing to try.
Yeah, that's the only thing that made me willing.
Yeah, me too. Those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair, which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or his present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it, then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who once were in this class are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience.
It talks further on in the book about complete denial. That, like I can basically have a spiritual experience and then snap my mind shut against it and say, no, there is no God.
That was coincidence.
Belligerent denial, that's what they call it. Yeah.
That wasn't God, it was coincidence. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recover.
Can you please read that again?
Yes, I can. Further on, kind of murky directions are showing us how we sort of maybe are still recovering forever.
Yeah. So it's a recipe, right? We have a recipe to tap into the fourth dimension of existence, and that is the coolest thing ever, right? I love my life today, and it's only as a result of the 12 steps and applying these principles to my life that I live there today.
And they really are clear-cut directions. It tells you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give us a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives.
So we're talking about the stories in the back of the book.
Yeah. We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I'm one of them too. I must have this thing.
Awesome.
One of us.
We're going to shut her down there tonight.